So, Boyan, I have one question for you. Today we have 2021, and before pandemic, in a lot of countries we have a big protest. We have in the October 2020 and 18, we have a protest in Chile, in Ecuador, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and many other countries. We have a big wave of the protest class struggle in all the world, and it was before start of the crisis of the capitalism, before pandemic. And in 2020 there are we saw this wave bigger and bigger in USA and other countries, also in Eastern Europe, in Bulgaria, in Poland, and other. So my question for you is, what do you think about mass protests in today? It is. Do you see the hope in this protest that because my opinion about this protest is that in all the world people are going to the street, they are protesting, they are fighting. In many countries like Iraq, it was very many people are died, or in Chile, but nothing changed. And I can see only one country. It is Bolivia, where was election and was winning by the party of the mass. But other countries, all this mass mobilization are not success. So what do you think about this for the strategy for the future, for fight for socialism?
That's right. Thanks. I think it's a very good question. I think it's essential, really, because the left tends to romanticize the protests and to romanticize protests in general. I mean, not only those that you listed out, but there's a lot of hype always on the left when some kind of protests occur, and everybody hyperventilates on them. And in the final aftermath, we don't get, the people that are protesting don't really get rewarded in most of the cases. And especially in, for example, here in Eastern Europe, you said it yourself, we had protests in Poland a couple of months ago, super massive, probably the most massive protests in one of the most massive protests in the modern history of Poland. And before that, we had people protesting on the streets of Sofia in Bulgaria, that's the capital city of Bulgaria, for nearly half a year, and pretty much nothing changed, right? So this is a very important question that the left should ask itself. And, it's great to have protests, and I think they give a lot of hope to left activists and campaigners and journalists and all the people on the left who are somehow interested in what's happening in the public sphere. But this is so much, and at the same time, just that. I mean, people protesting, and there's a lot of anger in the world, okay? And I'm sympathetic to the roots of that anger, but the anger itself doesn't solve anything. It's not. It's not a political lever. It's not. Yeah, okay. I think that's correct to say that it's not a sort of political thing. It's not a political leverage. If there's anger, then this should be somehow managed politically in order for the masses to have any success vis-a-vis the demands that they put forward, if they put forward any demands, really. Because, for example, in Poland, and I think that's a perfect display of this, we had mass protests, but without any clear orientation in terms of what the postulates are actually going to be. So people went out because they were super angry with the government and very tired, and the government sort of doing yet another outrageous thing provoked people to go out on the street and demonstrate the anger against it. And the accelerator was the question of banning abortions by the Constitutional Court here. But okay, we did protest, but in order to succeed, we really need some kind of agenda. Where do we go? Okay, like that was really almost an uprising here in terms of quantity and quality to a certain extent as well. But then it has to be translated into some kind of political language, because if it's not, then we're just displaying anger, and that's it. Well, where does the problem lie? And I think that it's mostly a question of political leadership that any kind of movement requires in order to succeed. And we don't have that. And now the next question would be, why don't we have that? And the answer to that is the situation on the left, globally, or particularly in the global north, because you said it yourself in your introduction. In Bolivia, for example, things went in a different direction. And why is that? Well, because they have the MAS party, okay? And MAS party, I mean MAS, not just the fact that it's MAS. It is a MAS party, but it's also called MAS, MAS. And this is the political entity that facilitates the revolutionary potential of the working class in Bolivia. Okay, same, for example, in Venezuela, right? Where, the party formed by Chavez and, that is still now the most important driving force, politically speaking, in that country. So they have mass populist left-wing political parties, okay? And now, regardless of whether they only speak about socialism or whether they actually, whether the leadership of those parties actually wants to break with capitalism, they are there, okay? And they are a kind of point of reference. They are a kind of focal point. And that's, these are the platforms, the organizations that help things actually happening, okay? And we don't have that in Europe. We don't have that in America, North America. I mean, be it United States or Canada. And this is a whole big topic. Like, why isn't this happening? And I would say that the most important element here is the fact that the left has given up on the notion of socialism quite a long time ago, by the way. And because of that, the left has put itself in a very defensive position, because if you give up on breaking up with capitalism and offering a new vision for society, civilization, culture, all the rest of it, then you end up sort of defending certain things. And for example, one of the leitmotifs for the left in Western Europe, but also in Eastern Europe, was the struggle against austerity. And that was, of course, very important, to struggle against austerity. But you can't really inspire too many people by just saying what you're against. You got to offer something, something that you could vote and be and act for, okay? And I would say that this sort of capitulation to capitalism, this sort of succumbing to the liberal democratic culture, made the left part of actually building the liberal consensus, okay, liberal, neoliberal, the kind of consensus around two major, strategic fundaments, okay, of the current order. And the one is the capitalist economy, and the second is parliamentary democracy. Like, the left in the so-called global north basically respects this as the boundaries of any kind of political action. And if you don't break that consensus, you can't really go very far. And what happens is that you can see that exactly in North America and Europe, is that the right wing, the populist right wing, actually presents itself as anti-establishment and as an anti-systemic force, which is ridiculous, okay? But because we don't do that, because the left doesn't put forward any anti-systemic postulates, then someone else is going to do that, because politics will not tolerate vacuum. And regardless of how lieful, falsified, and nonsensical, okay, the postulates of the populist extremist right wing are, they kind of they manage to take over the kind of populist leverage, okay, and to be able to inspire some segments of society, including some segments of the working class, okay. And from that point of view, I'm not very optimistic, because unfortunately this is a very deep problem, okay. And that's a problem not just of a choice of a given political say platform that you want to go for, or adopting some agenda, or having a programmatic discussion, but it's about like identity, okay. It's about identity in terms of politics, like where do we stand, what is the major difference between ourselves and the establishment parties, the establishment politics, established political culture, and so on and so forth. And when you look at it closely, then of course, if you're an educated political activist or campaigner, that's been on the left for, I don't know, decades or years even, then you will be able to point out certain nuances. Okay, we are different from the liberals, or we're different from the conservatives in such and such areas. But there are some differences, okay. This is just that, and to most people that are that form the so-called public opinion, these are just technical nuances, and they're not going to look for them, because for most people politics is just means to an end, and they want to have something, okay. Like the left would have to have a comprehensive message in order to be able to inspire these people to follow the left. And what does the left do? The left does two things, basically. The one tactic is the kind of opportunist tactic, which is, we're here, we're gonna modify the taxation system, plus maybe we're gonna raise your minimum wage, or maybe we're gonna raise the minimum retirement reimbursement, and so on and so forth. And that's it, okay. Like they just want to correct the barbarism of capitalism to an extent that it becomes capitalism with a friendly face. So I don't see how that's going to be inspiring to anyone, especially these small things, because look at Poland. Even conservatives, okay, even these Catholic fundamentalist crazy people, they can even do this. They can rise the minimum wage. They can give you some social benefits. It's not anything revolutionary. It's not anything particularly big, okay. And if you wanna make a difference, then you got to think big, and you got to be bold about it. Be somehow robust. Like try and present yourself, even in terms of political communication, okay, as a separate entity in terms of political quality, and try and demonstrate how you want to confront the system of oppression, okay. And then there's the other kind of left, which is the one was opportunist, and the other one is sectarian, which is like hanging around, okay, just fooling around. Actually, that's the phrase I should use: fooling around, telling people how the socialist revolution is right around the corner, and it's going to be great if just like hundreds of thousands of people go out in the street, and great. So that's also not inspiring, because people don't understand the notion of socialist revolution. The majority of the public opinion doesn't. You want to also explain to people what does it actually mean, because the word revolution is not necessarily very well associated in, for example, in our region of Europe, okay, particularly Eastern Europe. And that's not because there's something wrong per se with revolution. It's just because of the ongoing propaganda. I mean, it's been around here for like 30 years plus now. So these two elements, in my opinion, they demonstrate the fact that the left has a very general, very serious, very fundamental problem of linking, or of establishing some kind of symbiotic link with the mass consciousness, okay? And that's something that the right wing knows how to do very well. And that's why also the right wing can, can manage the public sphere the way they like. They can also, which is very important in my opinion, difference between the left and the right is that the right can accommodate all kinds of disagreements. And you can see that, right? They can even have separate parties. You have the liberals on one side, you have the conservatives on the other side, and you have, somewhere on the extreme, you have some proto-fascists or Catholic religious fundamentalists in general. So there are many, the right wing created a whole spectrum, okay, for people to make their choices. And to save the system from being undermined in any way. And the left wing doesn't have that ability. The left wing, as I said, it suffers either from terrible opportunism or from terrible sectarianism. And because of the general failure of the left in the last, 30, 40 years, okay, pretty much all over Europe, and including North America again, although the left in North America hasn't had any major wins throughout its existence, really. But that's another story. That's another conversation. But let's focus on Europe for a while. Like, what have we achieved, really? Like, our biggest achievement as the left, okay, broadly speaking, was I don't know, like Jeremy Corbyn's campaign, for example. Okay, that was very interesting. That was serious upheaval. That was a very serious mobilization. That was restoring faith in politics, in left politics, in honesty, in different kind of different approach, anti-systemic to a certain extent. Well, maybe not anti-systemic, but the way Jeremy Corbyn formed their message. Okay, that was, for example, the manifest for the many. For the many, not for the few. Okay, their manifest. I read the manifest, and I think it was very interesting. But on the other hand, I want to say that had anyone put forward such a document in the 70s or in the 80s even, early 80s, I mean, in the Labour Party in Britain, that wouldn't have been anything particularly radical. I mean, that would be just one of the many, many documents in that tone and with that kind of political message that would have been, discussed in various circles of that party. But now, because of how right-wing the general reality became, this was already something that was able to disbalance the class balance, so to say. Okay, that was able to somehow shake the class balance of forces within the Labour Party, and then through that within the entire political establishment in Great Britain. So that made sense. And what happened in the final aftermath? It was all around one man, okay, pretty much, who just, he's a very honest person, obviously, and he's got some very good ideas, but like he didn't really have any kind of leadership. He didn't really offer any kind of leadership that would be different from any of the schemas of the models that we know. All right. So finally, everybody was against him in the party. He wasn't able to use the popular support to actually cleanse the party from all these right-wing elements. And finally, he ended up being eaten by them and by all kinds of strategic mistakes that he made. So look, we're in a very difficult situation, and we have to realize that. We have to face that. I don't mean to spray around any kind of negativism, but in order to become optimistic about the future, in order to become to have a rational approach, okay, we need to realize where we are, and we are in a very dark place at the moment. And the only way for me really to go forward at the moment is to organize as broadly as possible. Like, everybody who is on the left should come together in their countries, in their regions, in their communities, in their neighborhoods. Everybody should come together and start discussing what to do next. Because, that sounds like a very basic thing to do, but it's not going to be easy. And I'm telling you that by, my observations about how the left has behaved over the last, decades, particularly since the development of the internet and popularization of the internet, and then the anti-social media, as I like to call them. That became very difficult because the left demonstrated that it's totally unable to accommodate any sort of disagreements, particularly about tactical and strategic issues. And this is what we have to work on, like tactics and strategy. What are we going to do with all these left-wing parties smashed pretty much everywhere, with some exceptions, okay, in Europe, or even if they're not smashed, they just became part of the political establishment. What do we do? How do we go about the whole thing? Like, where do we strike? Where do we begin organizing? What are going to be our first campaigns? How are we going to establish some kind of meaningful political communication? What is our propaganda going to be mostly about? Like, these are all very, very important questions, and they are very basic at the same time, and they demand answer in order for us to make this tiniest step forward. And I think, why do I say I think it's going to be difficult? Well, exactly for the reason that I just mentioned. There is a problem with discussion on the left. There's a very serious lack of political culture of debates, and it seems like there is also this problem that many people on the left, and that's very visible in Eastern Europe, by the way. Okay, like, I know you're in France, I'm in Poland, but I travel throughout Eastern Europe, like not now because of the COVID lockdowns and stuff, but for the last couple of years I've been traveling. I've been to Bulgaria, Romania, other countries of Eastern Europe, Russia, and the people on the left, particularly leaders, okay, and they might be low-ranking leaders. I'm not talking about like big parties, bosses. They perceive themselves as some kind of exceptional people. And now, I don't know why is this. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not even a philosopher. I'm not sure how has this trend developed, but I think it's very dangerous, because this is one of the fundamental factors that prevents us from actually being able to establish any kind of communication with people who are not exceptional, okay, and who don't even perceive themselves as exceptional. Maybe some of them do on some kind of individual basis because someone has such and such skills and stuff. But this is just like most people are people. And then those people who consider themselves exceptional, okay, they are not that in the eyes of the working class or of the public opinion of the societies where they work. And for them, they are just another guy with an opinion, okay? Same as a guy who belongs to any right-wing party or organization. And the thing is that we have to have better arguments, better political communication, better platform, better agenda, and most of all, we have to be inspiring to people. And in order to inspire, as I said in the beginning, we need to have some idea about the future that is going to be radically different from what we're having right now. And because of the overwhelming cowardice, of the left, and because of because of the way that it succumbed to the liberal democratic culture, we are where we are in this very dark place. So it seems like we really have to start, at least in most places, I think. Yeah, in most places we have to start pretty much from scratch. Okay, like we just have to get together and start discussing the basics. And it's of course very frustrating because many of us have been there already, okay, and done that. But perhaps now, after these years and decades of failures, perhaps, just perhaps, we've learned something, okay? And I think that the other optimistic element is that what's coming, okay, is very chaotic. Okay, this year particularly, it's obviously going to be super chaotic. There's going to be many shifts and sudden kind of processes, okay, or phenomena that's going to shake the world order in general. And if we have some active minorities within the left that are sane, okay, then we would be able probably to use these situations potentially ahead of us to actually build on that, and to use that as a kind of as a leverage to sort of catch up and be in step with the with the masses, okay, to just use this cliche. And again, I don't know whether it's gonna happen, but if the left is to continue to be any kind of political factor in Europe or elsewhere, then it has to transform itself and to a certain extent maybe reinvent itself and its identity.
Okay, you said a lot of things, and I would like to comment that I can say that I am the specialist for the question of the sectarian left, which you named. That I know many people like this, and my observation about sectarian left in Poland, but not only in Poland, also in France, is that many of these people are very intelligent, are people very well educated in the question of the Marxist theory of economy, and many stuff like this. But when I started to try to spread this word in the internet, to speak about capitalism, critics like this, many of them didn't wanted to use this platform. They said that it is they can have problems with this, that in Poland we have anti-communist hysteria, police or neighbors or somebody can fund them, and they are not in internet. They have like paranoid. They think that all the time secret police are searching what they do. They are maybe in the part petite group for 5 person, but all the time they think that that secret police all the time looking what they are doing. And in internet, in English speaking internet, in the people who critique capitalism, I think that many of them it is they use this situation that the Marxist revolutionaries don't want to use this platform, and people who are not radical, they use it, and they use this vacuum, because in right there are not this. When we look the political spectrum in the right, we can find people moderate right, but also extreme right in internet, and they can speak all these stupid things, and they are very, very popular. In left, we have situation that very popular are people like not very radical. I think that people like Partirazem is and try to find somebody who is in the extreme right, that extreme left, that Partirazem is very difficult, because they don't want it. They prefer to speak in the petite circles, and it is so this they are marginalized because they want it.
Yeah. Look, a couple of things here. Now, starting with because I'm not sure whether I remember all the points that you made, but starting from the last one. Now, they are marginalized because they want it. Obviously, that's totally true. And I have been very critical against this kind of thinking, because what is the problem with this? Now, first, it's the question of thinking small. I hate this. Okay, I hate this minimalism, this political minimalism of the left. And obviously that has to do with, cowardice, and you also mentioned that, and I mentioned that previously, but I'm going to talk about that maybe a little later. Now, I want to say about, when you think small, what is the message, the underlying message that gets conveyed? Well, the message is, I don't really care about power. I just want to play my own little show, run my own little show, okay, somewhere on the fringes of, and you know, it could be in the internet, it could be in the parliament, like, for example, the Razem party is doing right now. And of course, like, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm glad that they are in the parliament. It's better to have them in the parliament than not to have them in the parliament. And I think, you know, I voted for them, and I will probably vote for them again, unless they do something ultimately stupid that is going to detach me from them. But again, I don't want to sound like, you know, I'm one of those exceptional people on the left, as if my vote matters so much. But yeah, that's true that they isolated themselves. Now, why have they done this? Now, it's not just a matter of them fearing, okay, or being afraid of something specific. It could be the secret police or whatever. It's not so much about that. First and foremost is that they don't believe, let alone socialism, they don't believe they could take power, okay? And if you don't believe you could take power, you don't fight for power. Even if even if you publicly in your public statements, you actually do that. Like, you actually say you're doing this, you're fighting for power, but they're not. They're just fighting for small things like, let's get into the parliament, okay? And that was their highest bar. That was like, you know, their, let's get into the parliament, let's have some representatives, some parliamentarians. And they achieved that. Okay, what's next? Well, pretty much nothing, because there is no, you know, the next level would be, let's expand our presence in the parliament and let's take power. But then it poses more questions. Why take power? What are we going to do with this power? And that is also a threat to their existence. And why is this? Now, look at the Polish Razem party, okay? Like, regardless of what anyone thinks about it, regardless of like how social democratic or how socialist they are, doesn't matter at the moment. I just want to look at you know, the process of the creation of that political entity. Now, it was created through the sentiment of disappointment with one of the major right-wing parties in Poland, that is the Civic Platform. And the majority base of the Razem party in Poland are the disappointed liberal Democrats, okay, or people with liberal democratic views that just wanted the Civic Platform to give them more individual freedoms, you know, and like, I don't want to go into the programmatic nuances, but they just expected more liberalism from the Polish liberals, who aren't really very liberal if you look at the doctrine, okay? And that was the sentiment upon which the Razem party was built. And of course, that wasn't the only sentiment, but that was the basic sentiment that allowed it to gain momentum in the first moment. So that's one thing. And second thing, that was also a very important boost for expanding the party and for expanding its presence, was what I call the internet left, okay? And the internet left is a very problematic phenomenon, because most of the people who consider themselves, for better or for worse, to be left-wing and have this hyper presence in the internet, particularly in the social media, they are perceived, they have been perceived by the party and by its leadership and by the most important people there as their real factual base, as someone that they could rely on. And that's not true. That's, you know, the internet left is just a bunch of bunch of poorly accommodated people who, for lack of any other alternative, you know, just engage in this, you know, multitude of quarrels, fights, and you know, this pathology. Okay, that's like, it's a cancer, really. It's the kind of anti-culture, okay, that unfortunately is very popular on the left. And now, of course, it's also popular on the left because there's very little activity outside the internet. Okay, so this is how it started, and how it started determines also the limits. I mean, they cannot really go anywhere beyond that, because if they transform themselves suddenly into some kind of consistently socialist party, they're going to be in trouble. Okay, they're going to be in trouble with their base. They're going to be in trouble with their coalition partners. They're going to be in trouble in general. Okay, with their media partners as well. So I don't think there's much of a hope for them to do more than they've actually done. And I want to congratulate, of course, on some of their actions, like, for example, their representatives, I mean, their MPs, okay, going out on the streets, confronting the police during the women's strike demonstrations, and being tear gassed and being beaten up and so on and so forth. That was great, and trying to help people, and fantastic. That's something they have to be congratulated on, definitely. But this is pretty much, I don't believe they can go any further. I think that, they are isolating themselves from the internet, because in order to go into the internet and gain popularity, and that's another kind of, fixation, that you have to be super popular in the internet, because that somehow proves that you're right, which is a completely illogical and nonsensical concept. Okay, so in order to be there in the internet and to have some kind of visibility and popularity that would correspond with the popularity of your party, then you'd have to somehow, again, be inspiring, say some kind of stuff which is controversial, okay, at the very least. And they don't intend to do that. And I follow their YouTube channel. Okay, what do? They do things like, and this is really pathetic. I mean, they do programs like "Have a Coffee with the Left." That's like my word-for-word translation. Okay, from Polish to English. Have a coffee with the left, where 3 people drinking coffee and discussing whatever happened in the parliament or in Polish politics over the last week or something. And it's done in such a boring manner, then I can't even see any difference. And it's not about the people necessarily being boring that speak, but it's about the general format. Like, how is this different from any kind of neoliberal news media kind of program? It's not. Like, of course they will tell you a little more about taxation maybe, or social solidarity. They're going to use this sort of language, but it's just that. Otherwise there's no passion there. I can't see any particular emotions there. I can't see any kind of human attachment to what they actually represent. And I'm not surprised, because it's very difficult to be somehow inspired by that, because they don't present anything inspirational. So this is how they isolate themselves from the internet. Now, the question of those radical leftists that don't want to come on your show or whatever, they don't want to be present in the internet because they're afraid of the secret police. Look, when you're on the left, regardless of whether you are a radical Marxist, Leninist, or whether you're just I don't know, democratic socialist, I mean, there's many names, right? You will always encounter some kind of repression, and it could be mild, depending on what you're doing and how dangerous you potentially are to whatever the system, the authorities, locally, nationally, whatever, or it could be serious. I mean, this is just how things work. Okay, like you cannot avoid this, and if you are going to avoid this, then why do that in the first place? I mean, I don't want to say that people shouldn't engage in any kind of violent struggle, because that makes no sense, in a way that like the state can easily crush you. They have the police, they have the army, and so. But I'm saying that you should be honest about what you want, and you should be honest and also transparent. Like for example, I'm not afraid of being interrogated by the police, because I don't hide anything. I don't have anything to, like, even if they accuse me, there's this nonsense in the Polish law about totalitarian traditions of socialism, communism, and so on and so forth. Even when they interrogate me on that, I will just show them all my programs where I said, and it's clear for everyone to see, that I condemn the totalitarian traits, like in some countries, that were part of the Eastern Bloc or Soviet Bloc or whatever. So there's like what's the problem? Okay, and of course this repression could become stronger now because we live in conditions of an authoritarian state, but still we're not at the point where they're just gonna arrest journalists, just randomly pick them up and arrest them and harass them, because they've got enough problems at the moment. Okay, with the pandemic, with their conflict with Brussels, their conflict, they're now the shifts in America. I don't know how they're going to get on, whether they are going to be able to get on with Joe Biden and his administration. So you got to be careful and you got to be serious, but you can't be afraid of showing your face somewhere on the internet saying that you're that you're a leftist and that you want to fight or join the struggle for a better world, a better society, better civilization, because you can have all kinds of reasons, moral reasons, or philosophical reasons, or whatever, what have you, right? But if someone is invited to a show like yours, for example, and says, look, I'm not going to go there because if I say socialism 3 times and communism once, then the next day someone could come to my door and arrest me for that. Then I'm sorry, but this is just not serious. Okay, and there's a lot of infantilism on the left and a lot of infantilism in the general culture. And I don't want to write these people off. Everybody should do what they like to do, but you got to be serious about whether you just have left convictions or whether you want to be a left-wing activist, campaigner, political organizer, or anything like that. And I, for example, I will go on any show, okay, anywhere in the internet, if I'm allowed to say what I like to say, and I will be always pretty happy to confront my views with anyone else's, be it from the left or from the right, doesn't matter, because we have to talk to each other. Okay, this is the only thing that we can actually effectively do thanks to the internet. So we should talk to each other instead of calling each other out, calling each other names, canceling each other. This menace of cancel culture is something absolutely unacceptable and so immature and so infantile. All right. So, I think it's ludicrous on its face to think that because I participated 3 or 4 times, or I will, 50 times on your show, that, the police would come and arrest me and make some kind of case against me. So, so that's my answer to this. And then there were 2 other points that you made in the beginning, but I don't remember them. I'm sorry.
Okay, I would like to ask you about the best strategy for the left. We have 4 examples. We have example of the Jeremy Corbyn, who tried to use the big party and make this party socialist. And many people joined the Labour Party, many young British, and it's failed.
Yeah.
We have a strategy of Bernie Sanders, and also many people joined the Democratic Party in the support Bernie Sanders campaign, and it's failed.
Yeah.
We have example of the Party Podemos in Spain. They not failed. They are in government now, but this is not the politic anti-capitalist. And we have a strategy in Greece, the coalition of the many small parties, radical, which they made coalition Syriza. They won election. They organized referendum and with support the all leftists in the Europe. And when they won, they
failed. Yeah, they betrayed everyone. Yeah, that's
betrayed. True. Yes, it's good word. So, do you think what strategy you propose for the future?
Look, I think it would be a little bit too pretentious of me to say what is the best strategy for the socialists around the world. I think that things vary from region to region and from country to country, and I don't think I can competently evaluate for example, the participation of the Podemos party in the government. I know that there were some failures, and I know that there have been problems, and also the leader of that party, okay, Iglesias, is he's problematic himself, okay. So I know there are many problems there, but I don't know how things. I'm not really kind of well informed as to how things go in Spain at the moment in terms of the politics. But what I can say is that, look, now we have this pandemic thing, all right, and that's an excellent situation. Well, that's a terrible situation because it's a deadly global pandemic, but that's an excellent situation from the point of view that now you could use this for calling, the capitalist politicians for what they actually are. And it's so easy because everything's on the table. All the facts are here. Starting with, for example, lack of healthcare in America. Okay, so amidst this deadly pandemic, the richest country in the history of humanity and the most powerful country in the history of humanity, they are not able to service, okay, to provide healthcare service, adequate healthcare service to their citizens. Okay, so this is such a major failure, and the left could grow on this, and we could just use it in the most demagogic manner, if you like. Okay, we could just but nothing's happening really, okay? And I suppose the same would go for Spain in a way that they would be able to explain that, look, for now 3 or 4 decades, we have been sold this mythology that everything that's private is better and everything that is state-owned is bad. So now, we have almost no healthcare or very limited healthcare or very badly run healthcare system. And, I don't see anyone doing that. And in Poland, for example, or in Eastern Europe, that doesn't happen either much. And it's actually even worse from the point of view that the left started cheering on the authoritarian kind of ideas put forward by various governments around the continent, and just because COVID has to be contained, and in order to contain and stop the spreading of the virus, everybody has to be in house arrests and all the rest of it. And I don't want to dispute now the efficiency of the lockdowns. I don't know about that. I really have no competent comment here. But at least it deserved some kind of political attention and critical thinking on the part of the left. The left, okay, they could have said, if they actually support the lockdowns, they could have said something like, okay, the lockdowns are here, and we accept that the lockdowns are necessary, but A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you can go about, like, after the lockdowns, we have to have full spectrum of civic liberties, freedoms, and people should be encouraged to organize, and there should be some kind of political communication that's going to be inspiring, okay? Something that's going to somehow, be of substance, right? And of course, this didn't happen. And now, I think that many things could happen through mass organizations. There are mass organizations with huge traditions, like the British Labour Party, like, I don't know, maybe the German SPD. I really don't know, okay? I mean, I don't know, in a way, I don't know what's best. I feel that people who believe that we should intervene within these structures, and people who think we should work outside these structures, and people who think something else, for that matter, should be able to discuss with each other. And this is, something that I try to, I can't stress that enough. I mean, let's just sit and talk. And let's just acknowledge that there are some differences in terms of tactics and strategies, and that's it, okay? Or even in terms of historical evaluation, okay? Like, people can have different ideas about the Soviet Union or whatever, but I just want us, let's sit and discuss, and let's focus on the 80% of things that actually unite us, and let's see what we can do in a given moment, in a given country, region, whatever, state, and so on and so forth. This is essential, because if we don't sit down and talk, regardless of whether we think we should turn our attention to the mass organizations or I don't know, build independent small parties from the scratch, I don't know which tactic is best, but I'm sure we should be able to behave like adult people, okay? That is,
to, have discussions about how to go forward. And, everybody should also be free to do whatever they like. In a way, if someone feels that they are confident and comfortable working as a radical socialist in whatever party, it could be the British Labour Party, it could be the Podemos Party, the PSOE Party, even the Polish Razem Party, if you like, okay? If they feel comfortable there, good, let them do that. But let's just try and coordinate something, okay? Let's just try and do something substantial. Let's try and offer at least something, okay? Because otherwise, it's just like people who think this and people who think that. And then you know what happens? They finally meet in the internet because that's the easiest way for them to meet. Otherwise, they don't get invited to the to the mass media or anything like that. They meet in the internet and they fight, which is like the most lunatic thing to do. I mean, we've got so many problems and there's so little of us that to sort of be at each other's throats every time we meet up occasionally on the internet is just insane, okay? And I don't quite understand what is this. Like, I'm not a sociologist, I'm not a social psychologist, but I would have loved to grasp it. Like, what is this? Why is this actually happening? Look, I'm open, as I said, I could talk to anyone, all right? Like, you invite me today on your show, tomorrow I could go, like, I won't get invited, but I could go to the Razem's party show and I could, say what I think about whatever they would be discussing. But there's just no connection. There's just like, everybody's the general of their own non-army because no one really has an army. So for me, the best option as a journalist, as a kind of post-activist, because I used to be active on the Polish left for like about 20 years, well, maybe less than that. But then, I because of the general collapse of the left here, I started doing this journalistic work, which I think is super important because we have to have our own platforms, which is also super important. I don't understand why the left doesn't sort of think about it, or the majority of the left doesn't, at least. On my platform, everybody is welcome, okay, who's on the left and who wants to say something or to explain things. For example, and that's so easy to do. That's so easy. Like, it doesn't require any kind of sacrifice. It doesn't even require so much funds. Like, it's important, of course, to get funds, but and to organize financial, finances for such initiatives. But just a very simple example, okay? We're in contact with this professor from Georgia, American professor, Marxist, Ben Burgess, okay? And, he wrote an article for our website about the so-called, as the Americans like to refer to it, really existing socialism, okay? That is pretty much, the former Eastern Bloc. And I don't think the article is very good. I don't think his analysis is brilliant, okay? But I welcomed it because it's interesting for probably people to hear and sort of get a glimpse of how the American left sees, our history and how sort of it falls or doesn't fall within their kind of the schemas of their political communication and within their political disputes that they're having. And, now, well, not now exactly, but say in 1 week time, maybe, I want to produce an article which is going to be an argument against some of the theses, okay, that Ben Burgess put forward in his piece. And, and that's fine, okay? Like, we just disagree on certain things, but we keep working together because we understand we're adult people, that the left has to come together, that the left has to, work together, that the left shouldn't double, their own work because there's so little of us and the resources are so scarce. And, and we go on. And this is what should happen pretty much everywhere. And particularly that should happen in Eastern Europe. And I think it's a kind of, it's one of the most fundamental factors that is contributing to our failures. I mean, this kind of lack of culture to debate.
Okay, I have a question about in the Barricade channel. Yeah. That in the beginning, when I started watched the oldest movies, I saw the interview with the people from the Eastern Europe, from Poland also. But in the last month, I think that the majority of your guests came from the USA, came from the other Western countries. I think Italy also, and in this technology, internet, what do you think about the future of the internationalism? Because when it is so easy to speak with somebody interesting, Marxist, revolutionary, communist from the USA, other countries, also maybe you could try to find somebody in the China or Africa. Technology gives this possibility, this
option.
easier speaking with somebody with. Okay, I think that you understand question.
Yeah. Look, this technology gives us all these opportunities that you described, but remember, for now. Because when I look at what's what's going on in the United States in particular, this banning of the sitting president from using Twitter and Facebook, and I think they even removed him from some kind of shopping networks and stuff like that, which doesn't have anything to do with his politics and stuff. So of course, I hate Trump. I don't want to come through as some kind of Trump supporter, but this is really dystopian. I mean, some corporations are entitled to overrule, the most important political position in the most powerful country in the world. Like, they're just going to take away the president's Twitter. It's it's really frightening. I'm laughing because it's also kind of laughable on a certain level in a way. Trump is a great advocate, of capitalism and free market and so on and so forth. So if you're such an advocate, then now you get fucked over by one of the biggest capitalist entities, or a few of them really, because it's Facebook and the tech giants, right? Like Twitter, Facebook, and Google, and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure whether we're actually going to be able to exercise this kind of freedom for a long time. And I think that we are potentially able to exercise it now because the left hasn't been doing much work in this respect. So once it actually starts doing it and starts doing it massively, then I'm not sure whether, some kind of digital censorship isn't going to somehow prevent us from doing that. I don't think this is going to be possible in a short run, but in a longer perspective, when they will want to set up and manage the digital sphere in a more in an even more authoritarian manner, that could happen as well. I mean, this kind of limits could be posed so that we are not going to be. It's not going to be as easy, all right, as it is now to actually contact with someone from halfway around the world and discuss politics or whatever organization and stuff like that. But in general, for now, I think it is possible. We have all this technology, communication of the 21st century, and we can have meetings, party meetings, all kinds of meetings that are going to take place, physically, where people meet in some kind of hall or room. But this could be streamed. This could be available to wide masses of people. In the social media, outside the social media, anywhere, right? So this is very good, and I think this. In a rational society, in a rational system, that would have been a fantastic thing. Now, because we don't live in a rational society, we live in a society which is fear-stricken, uncertainty-stricken, which is very demoralized, violent, and so on and so forth. Then, of course, it also creates problems because, once you start doing this, you can easily get carried away, and you're going to attract all these people that are, part of this internet left, which I'm telling you, and this is my own sort of bitter experience, It's my own observation. It's my own empirical experience. So I don't know whether, there are some sociological, for example, researchers that, contradict my point of view. But unfortunately, I think that if we just get carried away and if we detach ourselves from the real material reality and just go for this internet internationalism, then we will end up with a bunch of, people who just, for lack of any other, any better option, for releasing their impulse, they will just go to They will just go to your events and be an obstacle, okay, a serious one. So I think the best option is to combine the two things. First is to organize on the ground, which is to meet people wherever. And I'm telling you, now it doesn't matter because we're almost like at the beginning. So it could be your neighbors, it could be your friends from the internet, or it could be whatever, like people from your union organization or from some party, or I don't know, you could set up an association if you like, whatever. Just get people together and start working on your idea as to how do you want to change the world, regardless of, all these nuances that are so vividly discussed in the internet, like regardless of what one thinks about gay marriages or something like, just sit together and think about the world that you want to live in, because this is the basis. We want to create a world that is suitable for everybody, okay? And in order to do that, we need to, start discussing at least. And of course, I don't think this should be empty discussions, because there's been a lot of discussion on the left for the last 150 to 100 years. And I think we should, like, at least partially base ourselves on certain experiences and certain, programs and so on and so forth from the past. But I definitely feel that, we should do this, and at the same time, we should do internet work in a way that we should, popularize all the ideas that happen, okay, through the internet. And also we should have events and debates in the internet for the people who are not able to come to wherever, our neighborhood, our town, our city, our region, and so on and so forth. You can do all kinds of conferences, you can do all kinds of debates. And I really feel people should do that. People should do anything in the internet and outside the internet that allows meaningful, serious communication between all kinds of leftists, all from all around the world. And I totally think that, internationalism is critical, because critical to our program, to our profile, to our suggestions for what to do. Because many people, particularly in Eastern Europe, think that that, for example, in Poland or in Bulgaria, that this is our backyard here, and we have to take care of it. And that's true to a certain extent. But then, many things that are affecting Bulgaria or Poland or any other Eastern European country are a function of what's happening in the European Union, in the United States, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to have this kind of feedback from all these countries, and to listen to more opinions and more speech and more arguments, because this is all enriching. And I think it's very important to do that.
Yes, I think that the similarity between Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, it is because there is internationalism in the bourgeoisie. When they decided to have a reform to have destruction of the socialism in Eastern Europe, they collaborate each other. Mm-hmm. So the workers or the people in the left also have to collaborate.
Yeah, totally. So they always do for the rich what should be done for the majority of the society. Like, you've got so much socialism for the rich, okay, all around the world, including Eastern Europe. And you've got this internationalism for the rich, okay? They will crush the working class together, in a coordinated manner. And for us, what they offer us is nationalism. No, they're gonna be united. United they stand. Great. But for us, no, we have to be patriotic, nationalistic. We have to be, who is Catholic, who is Orthodox, who is Protestant, who is Muslim, so they offer us all the dividing tools, okay? And they kind of hyperventilate on this. That's particularly visible in Poland, by the way. And for them, of course, it doesn't matter, right? Black, white, And you can see it in America, for example. The next Secretary of Defense is supposed to be a former black general, and everybody, like particularly the liberals, go like, great, fantastic. Or Kamala Harris, who's going to be the vice president right after Joe Biden is sworn in. Black, oh yeah, great stuff. Okay, so I mean, you see how I don't know how to even say that, how primitive this is. Like, it's just and I'm saying that because this should be so easy for the left to confront this. Okay, so easy, but the left doesn't want to do that.
Okay, I think that for today it's okay.
Sure, thanks. It's a pleasure. I mean, anytime. I'm happy to discuss with you and with anyone, any other potential guest on your show.
Okay, so one more time, I recommend the Barricade channel, Strike You, and what else? Radio.
Yeah, well, I collaborate with the Polish platform Strike, that is strajk.eu. Okay, and they've got a YouTube channel in Polish. I definitely recommend all the Polish-speaking people to go there. Otherwise, we have this channel called The Barricade, and that's also the name of our website. And the idea behind the website and the channel is to basically produce analysis, comments, and sorry about that, analysis and comments, and all kinds of other media works on Eastern Europe. And it's in English, so definitely you can go there. Otherwise, we have also YouTube channels and websites in Bulgarian and Romanian. If you speak those languages, then please go to Barricada or Barricada Romania, and you will see what we've done there. Since we're already advertising my work, then our work, okay, mine and the comrades of mine. I want to say that we've recently launched a Patreon campaign, okay, because we're starved of money and because of the COVID crisis, we're not able to conduct our business as usual. We got a publishing house in Sofia that is normally operating as a commercial entity, and that was the way for us to support our initiatives, media initiatives. But now, because of the COVID pandemics, we're not able to conduct any business. And we're really poor at the moment. So we've got this Patreon and also the Go Get Funding account. So if you could go there and maybe spare a dime for us, that would be really much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And see you soon.
Sometime later. All right. Stay healthy. Happy New Year. Ciao.
Ciao.